Okay, so we're here with Warren Mastenbrook.
Yes,
Okay, and so you said you're from Grand Haven.
I was born and raised here,
What year were you born?
1923.
Okay. And what did your parents do?
My parents,
Mm-hmm.
my father ran a filling station,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a veteran in World War I. Came home with a Purple Heart.
Okay.
My mother was a school teacher.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 3 brothers,
Mm-hmm. And you went to school in Grand Haven?
all
Okay. How did your parents, did they do okay during the Depression? Or do you remember much about that?
had his own business.
Mm-hmm.
He did all right.
Okay. And you said your father was a World War I veteran?
Yes.
Did he ever talk about his experience with that?
Well, they shipped him home with a Purple Heart.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you went to Grand Haven. What year did you graduate?
I didn't. I got out at, well, I took Latin,
Mm-hmm.
and about 1 week of that, and that was it.
Uh-huh.
I quit, so I lacked a half a credit from graduating in 1941.
Okay. So you were maybe 17 at that time, or 18?
I was 18 in June
Mm-hmm.
when I got out of school, worked hard all summer, and didn't want to go back and take a half a credit. So they were setting up the draft in Washington,
Uh-huh.
and I decided I was going to do what I wanted. I went down and joined the Marine Corps.
Okay. And so where did you go? Where were you sent for training?
I didn't hear what.
After you joined the Marine Corps, where did you go for training?
For training, I went to Paris Island, and that was September 41.
Okay, and what types of duties? How was training?
I can't quite hear you. I should have put my.
What kind of duties did you have while you were in training?
Well, I went down, went through boot camp, and then after that, they sent me to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the Marine Base in Quantico, Virginia, going to go on my way to Chicago when Pearl Harbor happened.
Okay.
So then I went to Chicago, and I got what I asked for. I asked for aviation. They shipped me up to Chicago, and I was a mechanic. That's what I had training, 6 months training as a mechanic.
Okay, and that was in Chicago? Did you go anywhere else after that, before being shipped out for training?
Well, I did my aircraft training in Chicago at Navy Pier. I was there for 6 months. And then they put us on a train for San Diego.
Okay.
And from there, we went over to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the F-4Fs aircraft. And I was the crew chief. And then they sent us down. Well, I was in VMF 211, and they had some Marines down there in Honolulu, and they sent some out to Wake Island. They sent some to Midway. They kept some of them in Honolulu.
Uh-huh.
And of course, those on Wake Island were captured, and those in Midway came back, and that's when I got into the squadron. And we went to Palmyra, it's 1,000 miles south of Honolulu, Hawaiian Islands. It's just a little place. The biggest thing was the runway.
Okay.
And it was shaped like a horseshoe. What it is the top of a volcano is what it is. And there's these little islands all the way around like that. And the Seabees took the bulldozer and bulldozed that coral and connected them all so you could walk all the way.
Oh.
You couldn't go all the way around, you could just go so far.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, just before we got there, Pan Am was started to build a hotel down there. so they could land the flying boats in that lagoon and keep the people overnight and then continue the next day down to the further south.
Mhm.
We stayed there. I don't know, I lost the book. I had everything written down, the ships I was on, the dates and everything. But we went back up to Hawaii and then we got different aircraft. We got the Corsairs, that gull-winged aircraft, and that was a nice airplane. I was a crew chief on that. From there on a little, we stayed there for training, and then we went down to Espiritu Santo, and from there we were on a ship up to Guadalcanal. The pilots flew the airplanes up. We didn't stay there very long when we went up to Bougainville, and that's where the Japs decided that they were going to chase us off. They didn't do it.
So what happened?
Well, Rabaul was the big Japanese base down there, and that was about like from here to Chicago away. And so our airplanes used to go up in the morning, they'd go on a strike up there and shoot up the place and fight with the Japanese, and then they'd come back at noon and we'd refuel them and rearm them. They'd go out again in the afternoon for the second strike. And this went on, I don't know how long, but the Japanese were, where we were, like the island was like that. We had just a little place. That's what the Americans had. The Japanese had the mountain up here and they could look right down at us. So, the journey kept a dive bomber up, the Americans did. And if the Japanese would take a gun out, they'd drop bombs on them. But you could see them. I watched them shoot at me. I could see the puff of smoke and the shell land right nearby. And this went on for quite a while. They blew up our mess hall, so we didn't have a mess hall anymore. And bullet holes through your tent and stuff like that. And then well, for a while, we couldn't keep the airplanes there overnight because they bomb and shell all night long, just to harass you is what they do. And then finally we got off that island.
Where did you go from there?
We went up to they had two names, Green Island was one name. And what was the other one that I had?
It might be on here, I don't know.
Yeah, Emerald.
Okay, where's that located?
That's on the northwest of Rabaul. But by that time, the Japanese didn't have any more aircraft that would fly down there at Rabaul. So they used to we went up there and the people would go out. Our fighters would go out in the morning, go down and check everything out, see if there were any ships coming in. And that's where I had the airplane, I taxied it up to the other end of the field so they could, what they call bore sight the guns. They'd jack up the tail and get the airframe perfectly level. And then it was .350 caliber in each wing. And I came back and we had a revetment, like U-shape, and line places in the back. So those airplanes, you couldn't push one up by yourself, so we'd come in there and taxi kind of fast. You go in there and you hit the right brake and that airplane would turn it around and it let loose. go backwards right in the corner, just where it's supposed to be. And I did that one day, and I didn't notice a Jeep sitting over there, and it was the commanding officer of the squadron, the major. He come over and he said, "You're kind of hot rodded." And I says, "No, I'm not. We always park in the back like this, and we don't have to go get somebody else to come over and help push the airplane." And the crew chief almost went off on the right wing, and the pilots used the left wing to get up in the cockpit. And he had another fellow with him, and he said he wanted to introduce me to him. It was Colonel Lindbergh. And he took my airplane up for a while, brought it back okay. Then one day when I was down there on Emerald, they came up and Jeep come up there. I was by my airplane, and he asked me my name, and I told him, the young fellow. He said, "Get in here, we're going over to your tent." So I had to show him where I was. He says, their record showed I had 26 months in combat zone, so. We went over to the tent, and he says, "Leave your rifle on the cot, have your stuff ready in 30 minutes, I'll take you down to the flight line where the aircraft is, take you back down to Guadalcanal."
Mm-hmm. So you were done with your service then? Or you're just going back to Guadalcanal?
No, we went back to Guadalcanal. There was two airplanes, the other one went right straight through. We lost an engine an hour out, we had to go back, get another aircraft, reload everything, and then it was too late to go into the canal that night, so I don't know where we stayed that night, some island. Stayed overnight, next morning we went down there. A couple days later, a ship pulled in. They said, "That's the ship, you're going right back nonstop to San Francisco."
Oh.
No escort or anything, it was a brand new ship.
Was it really big?
Yeah, it was a good size. It
There's
was the Liberty ships is what it was. And we got on that thing, and I met a fellow on there, and I thought I knew him. And it was a fellow from Grand Haven here. And he left the mainland, and when they went out to Peleliu, and he went in there, he was in the Marines, he went in there and he got shot up, and so they flew him down to Guadalcanal. And he went right back to San Francisco on the same ship he went out on.
So was there was a lot of other men on that ship with you that were coming back to the United States?
There was quite a few wounded on there.
Were you ever wounded while you were out in the Pacific? No? Did you ever have any occurrences with kamikazes?
No.
Okay, so then what year was it that you came back to the United States?
1944.
Okay, and what did you do after your time in the service?
I had 30 days. We went into San Francisco, I went down to San Diego, and I had 30 days leave. So I came up to Grand Haven and stayed here, and then I went down to Cherry Point, North Carolina. And I worked pulling engines, that's all I did. I do one B-25, which was a twin engine. I do one of those a day, or I do one Corsair a day. Corsair was a much bigger engine. All I had to do was take the props off and then take the cowling off, disconnect everything, and you have big overhand, a little control, big crane, is you put the engine right in front of you. You stand there and take all the accessories off the engine, put them on a big steel cart, and they had civilians working down there. They'd take them off someplace, all the parts, and then they'd bring them back again, empty. So if I did two Wright engines on a B-25, then I was done for the day, when I get them all done. Or I'd do one Corsair, then I was done for the day. And when my 4-year hitch was up on September 20th, 1945, the war was just over with, a couple of weeks before that. Otherwise, I would have had to sign up for another 4 years or go in the reserve. And I just walked out the door, went home, came back here.
Uh-huh.
Then I applied for a job in Grand Rapids as an aircraft mechanic. They didn't have any openings, so one day I went to work down here in Grand Haven at a furniture factory, and I hated every minute of it. I did not like that. And one day I got a phone call from Muskegon, Pennsylvania Central Airlines, and they talked to me for a while and asked me if I wanted to be a passenger service agent. They didn't have any mechanics openings. I said, sure, so I took a cut in pay and went up there.
Uh-huh.
And that turned into Capital Airlines, and I was in Muskegon 3 years. We went up to Traverse City and stayed up there 11 years, and then I went to Grand Rapids. Spent the rest of I had 36 years and 9 months when I retired, and that was 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was in Hawaii, we were up at Eva. It's outside of, it's a sugarcane mill town out near Barber's Point. And they took us and flew us down to Hilo for 3 days, R&R.
Mm-hmm.
That was after we came back from Palmyra, so I said someday I'm coming back.
Uh-huh.
And I did. I didn't get back till 67, first time I was over there. And then after that, I was working for United Airlines then. And so we used to go out all the time, 4 or 5 times a year. We'd go out to Hawaii, a different island. Finally, we just moved out there. Spent 22 years on the Big Island. It's outside of Hilo. We were right down by the ocean, and I built a house, and then I drew some money out of the credit union, built a one-story house right beside it.
Uh-huh.
She didn't like that a bit, my wife. But that's what we have right now. And another one-story next to it that wasn't near as good as mine. That's sold for $500,000.
That's good. How did you come back to Michigan then?
Well, when I sold the one house, the other house I had been using as vacation rental because it's right across the street from the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold one. I had some money then, and we have 3 of our 4 children live in Michigan. We have a bunch of great-grandchildren and grandchildren. We had 13 grandchildren, and now have 7 great-grandchildren. So we bought a condo out here at Hunter's Woods on Lincoln Street.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we thought, well, this is going to be good. We just 6 months, the winter's 6 months, from November 1st to May 1st, over in the islands, and then come back over here for the summer. But then a year ago, my wife got some infections, and she wound up in the hospital, and then in a nursing home for a while. We didn't get out of here until February 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to Hawaii and stayed there until May 1st, came back over here. Then this year, in October, she couldn't swallow. Well, she had cancer for a number of years, but it was above her left lung, not in it. It was outside of it, and it got over onto the esophagus and just squeezed it right shut. So they sent us up to Spectrum the first part of October, and she just finished, on the 5th, we were down to see the oncologist in Holland. And he had told her that he was gonna put her on chemo. And that she might be eating by Thanksgiving, and the day before Thanksgiving, she ate.
That's good.
So she got off from the chemo last week,
Mm-hmm.
and she's eating, and doctor gave her the choice of either a injection every 30 days or a pill every day, and she took the injection.
Uh-huh.
She had that, and then we'll go back over there and have the oncologist and heal them. We'll leave about the 1st of March, stay March and April and half of May, and then we'll be back over here.
Uh-huh. Do you ever have you ever been to any reunions for the time in the service?
Have you ever had one?
Any Marine Corps reunions to see any of the men you spent time with?
Oh, yeah, we have one every year.
You go every year?
211 has been, anybody that's been in 211 at all is welcome to come to the reunions.
Mm-hmm.
And we have them in different places. The one we had this year was right around the end of September. It was down in Pensacola, the Naval Training Station.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we stayed, the Navy Lodge in Pensacola.
Cool. Got that?
But we have them in different places. The second time we've been to Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
We had one up in British Columbia. One of the fellows lived up there. So we know a lot of the people, not the new time, but the old timers. This year my wife didn't go down with me. I had everything all reserved and everything. And our oldest son, the one that graduated from Grand Valley, when the Vietnam War was on, the Army said, we're gonna have you by August, get your things straightened out. He went down and joined the Coast Guard. He wound up doing a career and retired as a captain. That's one step below admiral.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Okay, you don't have any other memories or occurrences that you want to talk about, or you think you're pretty much done?
That pretty much covers it.
Okay.